Hey everyone, this is another Grim Dawn Basics video on the attribute points in the game. So attributes, there are three: Physique, Cunning, and Spirit. Physique controls your bonus health regen, and will give you defensive ability for each point. Cunning gives you bonus physical damage and pierce damage, and will also give you additional bonus offensive ability. Spirit gives you bonus magical damage and energy regen, and does not affect offensive or defensive ability at all. So, how would you want to spend your points? Generally speaking, for the characters I play, I focus on physique more than the other two. Usually, the array is 2 points of physique, and then 1 point in spirit or cunning, or 2 points in physique, 1 point in spirit, or in cunning, then spirit. Or I do 1 point in physique, 1 point in cunning, 1 point in physique, 1 point in spirit. The arrays, I tend to refer to them as 2 to 1 to 1, 2 to 1, or 1 to 1, between all of the stats, with physique getting the 2 every time. I do this because, especially later on, that's a car alarm. Okay, I do this especially thinking ahead because you need health to live. And if you don't have health to live, you die. And if you die, you're not doing anything in the game at all. So, physique is definitely the focus for me. And then the other two, it's based on the build. If it's like Albrecht's 8th array character, it's physique and spirit split evenly, avoiding cunning. If it's like a warrior mage character, it's physique with it's like 2 to 1 to 1. Puron warrior is 1 to 1 or 2 to 1 physique cunning. And generally I do really focus on physique. You don't have to. It's totally up to you on how you use your attribute points, and really, there's a lot of flexibility here because you do get a lot of attributes, attribute points from your leveling up. So like with the shaman here, you get 4, 3, and 4, 3, and 3 for physique, cunning, spirit, and then like the arcanist, you get 2, 3, and 5 for physique, cunning, spirit. So you will actually get a lot of those stats from your masteries, and you'll get them from your gear. So you don't really have to be like very specific on your attributes, and you can distribute the points however you really need them. I generally try to keep things in a little more organized with the focus on physique. I've seen a build that's actually put no points in physique and is done perfectly fine in ultimate, because there's a lot you can get from devotion as well, so you can shore up the lower defensive ability health that you'd lose from not focusing on physique. But I mean, it just makes it easier too to survive, especially later on. So for the other stats, I mean, health and energy are pretty obvious. Offensive ability is your hit rate and your crit rate, and offensive ability used to be God, so they kind of toned it down. It's still really important, and still way more important than defensive ability, but it's now not the end-all be-all stat. And I mean, my character's right now, he has a tiny miss rate, but he's still at level 31, so he has ways to go to acquire offensive ability. And defensive ability is the chance enemies have to hit you, and then their chance to crit you. There is a very elaborate formula that you can see at grimdawn.com and look at the game guide. There's a very elaborate formula to determine the hit rate versus the crit rate, and how hard the crits, both for you hitting enemies and for enemies hitting you. There's actually a lot going on there, and I don't have it memorized. Just more is better on both of these, and offensive ability is still way better than defensive ability. But yeah, there is actually a very elaborate long equation for figuring that out for every hit in the game. So your damage per second is just your sheet DPS, and it is in no way a representation of your character. It really isn't. For me, this is just showing my Lightning Nova DPS, and actually my basic attack, weapon attack DPS, and it's in no way a measure of my character's strength right now, because he's using Trojan Sky Shards, and if we switch in Trojan Sky Shards, like the DPS number for that is like 601, but it's like it's gonna be dealing like 1500 damage, so it's like it's not exactly precise on your damage per second with your character, but it is kind of a representation of some basic strength. So you, like, by example, just a pet build, a lot of times you'll have basic attack or even not basic attack. You could have like a sigil of consumption and a pet attack on your left and right clicks, and it says your DPS is 0. Obviously your DPS is not 0 because you have your pets dealing your damage for you. Or you could look at, like, say, my Albrecht's Aether Ray character, who his DPS says like 37k a second, and it's like, obviously that's not a representative number of his like DPS, because it's only Albrecht's Aether Ray, and only if you're standing still, and only the Aether Ray would be counted. It doesn't count your devotion at all. It doesn't count, you know, like this guy's Wind Devils and Trojan Sky Shards are not counted in that number. So sheet DPS, while it's helpful, is not exactly 100% accurate on the total damage output of your character. Now, armor is a lot like these two, a lot like offensive and defensive ability, in that there's kind of an equation that goes with it. But obviously more is better. And armor protects you against, I think it's physical attacks. Strictly speaking, your armor will block just damage that hits you. And like based on the equation, like where it hits your body and the amount of armor you have in that piece that gets hit, versus, I think it's like a damage versus the armor, and then there's like you'll absorb a certain amount of that damage, which is the damage absorption, and it's like another long, just really long thing that, like, you could look it up at the game guide at grimdawn.com to get the specifics, but for the most part, more armor is better. But armor is not an end-all be-all stat in this game. More is helpful, but armor will not necessarily keep you alive versus having, say, abilities on cooldown, like abilities that stop enemies and crowd control and just killing the enemies outright. So resistances in normal / veteran aren't as important as they are later on. Obviously fire, cold, and lightning are your elemental resistances. Poison is how well you resist the acid damage and poison dot damage. Piercing just goes right through armor straight to dealing damage, so that's why there's a piercing resistance. Bleeding is the resistance to getting bled. Vitality's resistance to bleed. Aether's resistance to aether. Your stun reduces the duration of stuns that hit you, and obviously chaos damage just resists chaos. As far as I know, physical resistance is in the game, but it's not a main resistance. So if you're hit with a physical attack that goes through your armor, well, I shouldn't say it goes through your armor, it's chewed up by your armor, and then you're hit with that damage, there is physical resistance, which just outright blocks that. And internal trauma damage is blocked by physical resistance. And as far as I know, internal trauma damage, is there a trauma res? I don't believe there is a trauma res in this game at all. So if you're hit by internal trauma damage, I don't even know if enemies have it or use it. They might, but internal trauma damage, I believe, is just no resistances to it. You hit an enemy with internal trauma damage, they just take all that damage. Because it's like, internal trauma damage is pretty unique in this game. Because internal trauma damage is like, you're literally destroying the body of the target regardless of what their body is. So it's not like they're bleeding, they're literally falling apart from the trauma. It's very weird and very cool and very unique. So, pretty much the rest of the stats are obviously what you can figure out. Attack speed is how quick your weapon swing attacks work. Casting speed, on the other hand, if you have anything that has unique animation, casting speed affects that. So if you have, say, if you're using the Force Wave ability from the Soldier, it actually scales with the cast speed. If you're using Phantasmal Blades with Frenetic Throw, it uses cast speed. So yeah, your run speed is how fast you run, health, energy regen, energy absorption. So if you're hit by an enemy, that used an attack that used energy, you can sometimes absorb some of that energy and get it back on your bar. In this case, this character has 10% energy absorption. Wait, he might. I don't know if he has any more. No. Okay. So, yeah, if you have energy absorption, that's how much you get back on that. Constitution controls your... How much Constitution is consumed when you heal. So this guy would just use the normal Constitution rate. But if you have like 25% Constitution, it will reduce the amount... or no, that's just to your maximum Constitution. So yeah, if you have 25% more Constitution, that just means you have more Constitution to work with. Experience bonus is obvious. Light radius is not that important, but pretty obvious. There are all skills in the game, like this guy's +1 to all Arcana skills. And then these are all your damage types. Oh yeah, cast speed, cooldown reduction, how much you use cooldown, skill energy reduction. So health damage, there are attacks like in the Nightblade with Execution, where you just deal chunks of health, just take it right off the enemy in terms of percents. That's what health damage is. I mean, all the damage types are pretty much just standard damage types. I think almost everything, except for Aether and Chaos, have an associated, like, dot type of damage associated to it. So burn damage is fire, frostburn is cold, electrocutes lightning, poisons acid. Vitality decay is related to vitality damage. And internal trauma is actually related to physical damage. Though I don't know that you get any crossover between actually, like, you deal physical damage and a percent of that is internal. I don't think that's how it works. But yeah, you also have your pets stats here, the bonuses you give to your pets. And then your defense is chance to block. Oh yeah, and then like shields are an entire different animal, because shields have a chance to block, and then when they block a certain amount of damage, and then they go on to a recovery time, and then you actually have abilities that reduce that recovery time. And shields can block any incoming damage, I think, except for dots. You do have dodge and deflect in this game, and dodge is avoiding melee attacks completely. Deflect is avoiding a ranged attack completely. And these two can be really powerful. The Nightblade has Shadow Dance, which if you keep it up all the time, at its 12th rank, gives you 20% on both of these. So that can actually be a really powerful stat if you focus on it. And then these are the resist to everything that isn't damage, and of course physical resist. Disruption resist is you can actually be casting a spell or using an attack and be stopped during it. That's how you resist that. Leech life resistance, if something hits you with leech damage, this is how you resist it. Same thing with energy leech. Trap resistance, this would be like if... Oh, what's an example? Oh, it's just entrapment. I was thinking that there is an enemy with traps, and I was like, oh no, it's just like, it's not slow res. It's like, if you're hit with, I think the bone cages that skeletal monstrosities do would be adjusted by that. I don't know that anything can actually petrify you in this game. I don't think I've ever been petrified before. Freezing is your freeze res. Sleep, I don't think I've ever been put to sleep either, now that I think about it. But, yeah, slow res reduces the slow effects on you. But, yeah, I don't think I've ever been affected by petrify or sleep, to my knowledge. I'm sure something in the game has got to do it to you. So, damage reflected, if you're hit by something and you have damage reflect, it just puts that damage right back on the target. It doesn't reduce the damage at all. And I believe life retaliation is percent life damage, but is retaliation. And then retaliation is like, so if he's hit by something in melee, that thing will take 2 to 65 lightning damage in return. So this is basically all of the thorns in the game. And there are thorns for all types of damages, and there are all sorts of abilities that can grant them to you. So like, Reckless Power here has fire retaliation. So this would give the character, if he's hit in melee, it would bounce fire damage back on the target. And then these are your stats, showing all of your stats and stuff. I mean, that's not really stats, but they're there. So, that was a medium-winded overview of attributes, and by extension, your character's statistics. So, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this Grim Dawn Basics video. If you have any questions about Grim Dawn, and any basic things I might be able to cover in videos, please let me know. These are going to be more sporadic than the dailies I've been doing so far. So we'll see how they work as well. So thanks for watching again, and I'll see you guys next time.